Yes, my name is David Barry, and I played Frankie Abbott in Please Sir and the Fence Street Gang. Um, how long have you got? How did I get cast? Well, about 5 years prior to Please Sir, I was in a play for Associated Rediffusion Television, and one of my friends was in it, Richard O'Sullivan, with whom I went to school, Corona Academy, a stage school, and it was set in an approved school, and it was called Nice Break for the Boys. It was cast by the casting director for Associated Rediffusion, Martin Case. Now, 5 years down the line, Associated Rediffusion became London Weekend Television, and Martin Case transferred to LWT. He phoned my agent up and said, we think David would be right for this character we're casting in a comedy called Rough House. And so I went along and auditioned, and I read for the part of Frankie Abbott, along with Malcolm McPhee, who read for Peter Craven, and Peter Denyer, with whom I'd already worked in the West End, for the part of Dennis Dunstable. And there were about 30 of us auditioning for those three parts. And we were waiting in a sort of ante room. And then Mark Stewart, the producer and director, his PA would come in and tap someone on the shoulder and say, "Thank you, you can go." So we were waiting in trepidation for the tap on the shoulder, which meant we hadn't got the part. And then three of us were left in the room, and Mark Stewart came in and said, "Well, I suppose you three will have to do. We'll be in touch with your agents." And Rough House started about 2 weeks later, rehearsals, and Frank Muir was head of light entertainment at LWT. And he said, "You can't call it Rough House. Why don't you call it Please Sir?" So it was called Please Sir. The title was changed, and it took off. It went into the ratings immediately. The very first episode, it was a read through, first of all, and then always outside filming was done on the second day of rehearsal. And so what I remember was we were on the bus heading to school, and Bob Todd, I remember, was the bus conductor. And we all recognized him from a Knorr soup commercial, because he'd become an actor almost by default. He bluffed his way. Galton and Simpson were writing something, Citizen James, I think it was called. And Bob Todd said, "Well, I'm an actor." And so they gave him a part. He wasn't an actor at all. I think he was a farmer, actually, originally. And that's how he became an actor. And I remember him as this bus put upon a long-suffering bus conductor on this first day of filming. Also, I can't remember how the original episode finished, but they rewrote it so that it was established that John Alderton had a worm-eaten desk. And so when we were all misbehaving, it was established as well that he had done some karate. And at the end of the episode, he came in and hit the desk, and it broke in half, and it had a big finish at the end. That's what I remember of the first episode anyway. Oh, Barbara Mitchell came in to the first series. I can't remember which episode now. I'd have to look it up. I'd have to look it up in my book, which I've written, Please Sir, the Official History. But I think it was probably about the sixth or seventh episode. No, it was the second series she came into, because the first series was in black and white, and it was 45 minutes long. Second series started in 1969. And I can remember her appearance. She played rather a bigoted woman. She was quite prejudiced against some Asians, doing oh gosh, I can't. my mind's going. I've written it all down in the book, but yeah, I think it was the first series actually. It was an episode called Panalal Passes By, about an Asian boy, and they had a parent-teacher meeting after school, and the only ones who attended were the Asian parents. And Barbara Mitchell was up in arms, or rather Mrs. Abbott was, showing her prejudice. But I remember we had a scene in a coffee bar with John Alderton ordering a beef burger and putting tomato ketchup on it. And she was saying things like, "Oh, when I had my operation, I hemorrhaged that man," putting him off his beef burger. She was very, very funny and a lovely person. It was very hard working with her to keep a straight face, really. The opening titles were outside in a school. I think it was somewhere in North London. I can't remember where. It may have been Neasden or Willesden or somewhere like that. And a school that was no longer in use, I don't think. And that's where we did the outside filming for the playground. Usually, though, it was all studio set, which we did in front of an audience. We did a live show in front of an audience with no retakes. It was usually done like a play. We started the recording at 8:30, and we were usually in the LWT bar by 9:10. The filming for the feature film, the police feature film, was done at Pinewood Studios, and the exterior in the summer camp was in a place called Black Park, where they do a lot of location filming near Pinewood Studios. It's a perfect setting. It's got woodland and open spaces, and they built our cabins, our location cabins there. Yeah, it was. Our first location was at Primrose Hill. It was a zebra crossing. You know, we were misbehaving on the zebra crossing and all that sort of thing. That's where that. And I don't know if ever you see any black and white movies, old British black and white movies, you may see in certain shots Eden's removals van, because Eden's usually had the contract to move camera equipment and props to the location. And of course, they were filmed so quickly, they didn't have time to move the Eden's van. Eden's didn't complain because it was a free advert. Well, when we were doing the police first scene, the Eden's van was in the back of the shot. And the assistant director was going berserk. He said, "Get rid of the naffing Eden's van. It's in the back of every naffing shot." A year later, my wife and I went to a Lowry exhibition at the Royal Academy. And Ellis Lowry had a very dominant mother. After she died, he came to London and painted some London scenes where he had his first exhibition. And we were wandering through the Royal Academy. It was quite crowded. I suddenly burst out laughing, and everybody looked at me because I was looking at this Lowry painting, which was called On Location. He painted this film crew on location, and there in the Lowry painting was an Eden's van. By the time we did the third series of Policer, we were all getting a bit long in the tooth, you know, so they were writing episodes of, working that we were going to get proper jobs. So London Weekend Television decided to very quickly bring out a film. And because we were getting really too old to play 15-year-olds. So we managed it with a film, I think. But that's how it came about. They'd already planned to do the film, to shoot it in the summer, bring it out for the winter. It opened at the Metropole. We had the preview at the Metropole Cinema in Victoria in the winter, November, I think, and then it opened for the school holidays, the Christmas school holidays. We saw kids queuing around the block to go and see it. But at that time, in the autumn, we'd started the Fenn Street Gang, which was the spin-off of the Police series, what happened after we left school. And that carried on into 1971, I think, because we did something like 26 episodes on the trot. I don't remember ever wearing any makeup. I think the only time we had makeup was when we were bruised, or you know, I think we were just au naturel. Costume wise, I started off with a combat jacket, like a military combat jacket, and then later on they gave me a leather jacket with skull and crossbones and all that sort of thing on it, and a Hell's Angel thing, and that became more associated with the character rather than the combat jacket. On the very first episode of Please Sir, they asked us to put on our costumes for the camera rehearsal, which was unusual because you don't usually do that. I think they just wanted to see how we looked. So I got down onto the studio floor, and there was John Alderton in this rather drab tweedy jacket. And I went up to him. I said, "John, that's perfect for what a young teacher, a naff sort of jacket a young teacher would wear." He gave me a very funny look as though I was winding him up. I later discovered it was his own wardrobe. It was his own costume. Yes, I do, actually. One of my favorite episodes was when I went in the army, and it was the guy who, oh gosh, I'm terrible for names. He went in to Get Some In. He played the lead character in Get Some In, and he played the corporal, and he was great. And it was a good episode. I loved the thing of going in the army and doing drilling and, you know, marching not very well and all that sort of thing. I wrote an episode called "When Did You Last See Your Father?" because I'd thought I had this dotty mother, Mrs. Abbott, who was way over the top. It was almost like an Oedipus situation. I thought, what happened to Abbott's father? So I wrote this as a synopsis, and I gave it to John Esmond and Bob Larby, the writers, and Mark Stewart, the producer, and they liked it, and I got commissioned to write it. So I wrote an episode, which was broadcast. So that's how I started writing at the time. Am I still in contact? Well, I'm in contact quite often with Carol Hawkins, who took over as Sharon for the feature film, and also the Fen Street Gang. She lives in Spain, and we often go to visit her in Spain once a year. The only time we didn't go was in 2020 when there were no flights. And I'm often in touch with Peter Cleal, who played Duffy. He lives in Brighton, not far from where I live, Tunbridge Wells. Apart from that, did meet John Alderton. He invited Peter, Penny Spencer, the original Sharon, and myself over to lunch with him and Pauline Collins about 4 years ago. And so we saw John and had a chat about old times. And but there's no one else around, really. The only other person I have spoken to on the phone, because I used to do my own radio show, and was Brinsley Ford, who played, oh gosh, names. I'll have to look it up in the book. Wesley. He played Wesley in the film, and he went on to have a marvelous career as lead singer of Aswad. Yeah, and I thought, oh, it'll be uncool to talk about Please Sir with him on, but no, he loved it. He said, no, I love acting. This came about because I've been a writer for quite a few years now, writing mainly crime fiction. And when the lockdown happened in 2020, February 2020, I phoned up my publisher and said, how would it be if I wrote, please, sir, the official history? It has to be the official history because I'm the only one left around to tell it at the moment, you know. So that's how it came about. They said, yes, we published that. I wrote it in about 4 months and they brought it out in November of that same year. Sales have been better than any of my crime books because I guess with crime books, you're competing with the likes of Ian Rankin and Val McDermid, you know, all best-selling novelists. Whereas I'm not competing with anyone with Please Sir. It's a niche market. And so it's done very well, really. My latest book, which is Laurence Olivier and Vivian Leigh, The Final Curtain, a lot has been written about them, but I toured with them at the age of 14 to Paris, Venice, Belgrade, Zagreb, Vienna, and Warsaw. And that book only came out about 2.5 weeks ago. So I'm very much into the marketing of it now. And it's had some good reviews. You know, the British Theatre Guide saw that, you know, the thing about it was Melvyn Bragg did a documentary about Laurence Olivier. He spoke to Laurence Olivier, and this was one of the most prestigious tours of all time. It was the first Shakespearean company to cross the Iron Curtain at the height of the Cold War, and it was wonderful with Vivian Leigh. And wherever they went, they showered us with bouquets of flowers at the curtain calls and everything. And whether or not Olivier said to Melvyn Bragg, it's too painful for me, you know, the loss of Vivian Leigh, because it's the last time they worked together, don't mention it. And he never mentioned it. And it covers about one paragraph in Olivier's autobiography, Confessions of an Actor. So not much was written about it. So, you know, I thought, no, it's time that this piece of history was written. So I'm hoping it does as well as the Please Sir book. Thank you very much, Andrew.